Investigators found a list of roughly 70 names, including state and federal lawmakers, in a fake police vehicle near one of the crime scenes. Dozens of Texas state lawmakers are asking for safety plans for protecting lawmakers as targeted political violence is really increasing across the country.
This comes as Texas DPS took a person into custody connected to political threats. Peyton May live this morning with an update. Peyton.
Yes, Brandon, police have shared minimal information, but we do know someone was arrested on the way to Austin. Investigators say they made threats against Texas lawmakers. Now, Texas DPS tells us a trooper brought someone into custody after a traffic stop in LaGrange. Authorities add there were threats made against politicians planning to go to a protest on Saturday. The Capitol in Austin was evacuated before demonstrations began. This all happened while lawmakers were learning about the attacks that killed and injured Minnesota lawmakers. Now, in response, State Representative Venton Jones is one of the many who signed onto a Democratic caucus letter to Governor Greg Abbott asking to increase safety measures.
We just have to make sure that we take this very seriously and do everything possible to not have this violence happen in our state. And I hope that the governor takes this letter very seriously and do the work necessary to keep our state safe and the individuals who have been called to serve.
Some lawmakers are asking about resources for online threats and the plan to protect against any copycats. The letter states, quote, politically motivated extremists have proven they're willing to murder to achieve political gains. And in light of the threat on those attending the protest, we have every reason to believe Texas officials could be targeted next. Now, police have not released any information about the person who was arrested. This is an ongoing investigation. We'll update you when we learn more. Reporting live in Dallas, I'm Peyton May for Good Day.
Well, for further context and perspective, this is not a Minnesota problem. Data from a bipartisan think tank at Princeton University shows that violent threats against local lawmakers reached a record high last year. Just since April, there have been more than 170 cases nationwide where local elected officials were specifically threatened or harassed. Now, some politicians here in Texas are calling on Governor Abbott for help. Fox 4's Amelia Jones is live tonight with more on that story. Hi, Amelia.
Hi there, Casey. After my conversation with Texas House Representative Venton Jones, it is clear that lawmakers are concerned about the recent uptick in violence, and they wrote a letter to the governor to ensure that safety is a top priority before any other threats are made or, worse, carried out. Saturday, before the No Kings protest in Austin, Texas DPS says a credible threat was made against Texas lawmakers. The Capitol building was evacuated before the protests began. One person was arrested in LaGrange en route to Austin, and the investigation is ongoing. This happened while lawmakers were learning of the targeted attack that killed Democrat Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband. Democrat Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were also shot in a separate targeted attack that the Minnesota governor called politically motivated.
Absolutely. Very shocked and very concerned.
Texas House Representative Venton Jones is one of the many who signed the Democratic caucus letter to Governor Greg Abbott, asking to increase safety measures for state lawmakers. The letter says in part, quote, politically motivated extremists have proven they are willing to murder to achieve political aims. And in light of the threat on those attending the protest, we have every reason to believe Texas officials could be targeted next.
I think it's very important to bring to the governor's attention that we as Democratic elected officials are very concerned for our safety.
The letter says these concerns stem from the rhetoric used by elected officials and online, and how those words can become physical actions.
We hear time after time, things that may come at us online, through social media, through people's, whatever, people have to say about the decisions that we have to make as lawmakers. But when you see that manifested and someone takes that conversation off the keyboard and literally coordinates a plan and carries it out, it should be something that alarms everyone right now.
The threats and attacks have largely been against Democratic lawmakers and elected officials, although it is worth noting there have been 2 attempts on President Trump's life. Jones acknowledges it's easy for people to point blame at one side of the aisle or the other when it comes to the harmful rhetoric, but he believes safety should be a top priority regardless of political affiliation.
We should only be concerned with safety right now and making sure we're doing everything that we can. And like I said, I don't care if that is a Democrat or a Republican. We have to protect people.
The letter ends by asking the governor to answer 3 questions. What steps will DPS take to protect state legislators and other elected officials? What resources are there to monitor online threats targeting state lawmakers? And what is the plan for DPS to protect lawmakers and elected officials against any potential copycat inspired by the recent assassination?
And I think that we just have to make sure that we take this very seriously and do everything possible to not have this violence happen in our state. And I hope that the governor takes this letter very seriously and do the work necessary to keep our state safe and the individuals who have been called to serve.
The letter was signed and issued yesterday, but so far Governor Abbott hasn't addressed it publicly or addressed the concerns that are included in it. Casey, back to you.
A sign of the times, but a scary one no less. Fox 4's Amelia Jones reporting live for us. Amelia, thank you.
Well, a woman has a serious head injury after an overnight shooting in the Deep Ellum area of Dallas.
And police say she was caught in the middle of crossfire. Ticia Mazinga live this morning with what happened. Ticia?
Hey, good morning, guys. So information is still pretty limited at this hour, but what we do know is that Dallas police, they are saying that they believe that 2 groups of people were shooting at each other after a fight broke out. Now, police do say that the shooting happened around 2 a.m. on Main Street and Good Latimer Expressway. A fight between the 2 groups ended in gunfire in Deep Ellum near Punch Bowl Social. Several people were seen scrambling and running to safety. Police say 1 woman was caught in the crossfire. She was walking to her car at the time of the shooting and suffered a head injury after falling and hitting her head. She was taken to a local hospital and is expected to be okay, but it is unclear if there are any other injuries. Several parked cars were also damaged due to the gunfire as well. The 2 groups eventually took off and remain at large. Investigators are going through nearby surveillance video to identify the suspects. Now, we are working with Dallas police to get more information about this incident, as well as a description of the suspects involved in this shooting in Deep Ellum. And once we get those updates, we'll be sure to provide those updates for our viewers and on our website at fox4news.com. But if anyone knows anything, they are also urged to call police. For Good Day, I'm Ticia Mazinga.
Governor Greg Abbott will be in North Texas today signing property tax relief bills.
He hopes voters will also approve the legislation. Shannon Murray here to explain what this might mean for homeowners. Shannon?
Yeah, Lauren and Brandon, the governor will sign 2 bills in Denton this afternoon. Then voters will have final say in the November election. The legislation approved by state lawmakers aims to lower property taxes by raising the homestead exemption. A homestead exemption is the portion of a home's value that cannot be taxed to pay for public schools. Senate Bill 4 would raise the exemption for all homeowners from $100,000 to $140,000. Lawmakers say that would save an average of nearly $500 in taxes per year. And the second measure, Senate Bill 23, would raise the exemption to $200,000 for people older than 65 and people with disabilities. That would result in an average savings of more than $900 a year for residents in those categories. Under SB 4, the state would have to make up the difference in tax revenue for school districts to guarantee that those public schools do not lose money because of the higher exemptions. Now, the bills require voter approval because they would amend the Texas Constitution. Brandon?
All right, Shannon, thanks.